The first thing I noticed wasn't the pain. It was the silence. A strange, heavy silence broken only by the steady beeping of machines somewhere beside me. My eyes refused to open completely, and everything felt distant, like I was trapped underwater. My body wouldn't move the way I wanted it to. My head pounded with every heartbeat. Then I heard someone quietly crying. When my vision finally cleared enough to recognize the room, I realized I was lying in a hospital bed surrounded by white walls and unfamiliar faces. But one face stood out. My girlfriend's younger sister was sitting beside me, holding my hand with both of hers. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she smiled with overwhelming relief and whispered that she had been so worried about me. At that moment, I had no memory of how I got there, why she was the one beside me, or why my girlfriend was nowhere to be seen. I only knew that something had gone terribly wrong. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, forgiveness, and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Dad's Second Chance. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories to people around the world. My name is Ethan, and until that morning, I believed my life was heading exactly where I wanted. I had been dating my girlfriend, Olivia, for almost 4 years. We had already started talking about marriage. We looked like the perfect couple from the outside. We laughed together, planned vacations, dreamed about buying a small house, and imagined the family we wanted someday. Her younger sister, Emma, had always been part of our lives too. She was cheerful, thoughtful, and incredibly protective of her older sister. She never crossed boundaries and always treated me like family. We often joked during family dinners, and she became someone I trusted completely. The last memory I could gather before waking in the hospital was driving home after leaving work during a terrible thunderstorm. The rain had turned the highway into a river. I remembered seeing bright headlights suddenly crossing into my lane. I remembered gripping the steering wheel with everything I had. Then there was an explosion of metal, blinding lights, and absolute darkness. As my memories slowly returned, another painful realization hit me. Olivia hadn't come to see me. I searched every corner of the room every time the door opened, hoping it would finally be her. Instead, Emma stayed. Morning became afternoon. Afternoon became night. She barely left my bedside except when nurses insisted she eat something. She answered doctors' questions, helped me remember small details, and encouraged me every time physical therapists asked me to move my legs that felt impossibly heavy. Finally, I gathered enough strength to ask where Olivia was. Emma looked away before answering. Her smile disappeared, replaced by a sadness that seemed too heavy for someone her age. She explained that Olivia had accepted a work opportunity overseas only days before my accident. She had delayed leaving for 1 day after hearing about the crash but believed I would remain unconscious for weeks. The company refused to postpone the assignment, and Olivia decided to leave, promising she would return as soon as possible. She called occasionally, but time zones, endless meetings, and distance slowly turned those calls into brief messages. Emma never criticized her sister. She simply told me the facts while trying to hide how much they hurt both of us. Recovery became the hardest journey of my life. My injuries weren't fatal, but they changed everything. My left leg had multiple fractures, several ribs were broken, and I had suffered a concussion that left my memory foggy. Simple tasks became impossible challenges. Standing required assistance. Walking a few feet felt like climbing a mountain. There were mornings when frustration overwhelmed me. I hated depending on everyone else. I hated seeing pity in people's eyes. Through every setback, Emma somehow appeared exactly when I needed encouragement. She brought homemade meals because hospital food made me nauseous. She read chapters from my favorite novels when headaches kept me from watching television. She decorated my room with photos from happier days, reminding me that life still existed beyond the hospital walls. She celebrated tiny victories that I barely noticed myself. The first time I stood without collapsing, she clapped louder than anyone else. The first time I walked across the therapy room with a walker, she cried tears of joy. Weeks later, I was finally discharged, but going home wasn't the happy ending I expected. Living alone while recovering proved almost impossible. Everyday tasks became exhausting obstacles. Carrying groceries, climbing stairs, cooking dinner, even tying my shoes demanded energy I no longer had. Without hesitation, Emma volunteered to stop by every day after work to help until I regained my independence. I resisted at first because I didn't want to burden her. She simply smiled and reminded me that family shows up when life falls apart. The months passed slowly. Olivia and I continued talking, but something had changed. Distance didn't just separate countries. It separated hearts. Our conversations became shorter, filled with awkward silence and forced optimism. She spoke about promotions, business meetings, and exciting opportunities. I spoke about physical therapy appointments and trying to take my first steps without a cane. Neither of us blamed the other, but we were no longer sharing the same life. Emma never tried to replace her sister. She never spoke badly about Olivia or encouraged me to give up on the relationship. Instead, she kept reminding me to stay hopeful, to focus on healing, and to believe tomorrow could still surprise me. That quiet loyalty made me respect her even more. Nearly a year after the accident, Olivia finally returned home. I imagined our reunion hundreds of times during those lonely months. I pictured running into her arms, forgetting everything that had happened. Reality was painfully different. We hugged like strangers trying to remember who we used to be. The warmth was gone. The future we once imagined together no longer existed. Neither of us was angry. We had simply become different people shaped by different experiences. After one long conversation filled with tears and gratitude, we agreed to end our relationship peacefully. Walking away from someone you once planned to marry felt like losing the future twice. For weeks, I questioned whether all my struggles had been meaningless. But every time hopelessness appeared, Emma reminded me that healing isn't only about broken bones. Sometimes the heart takes longer to recover than the body. As another year passed, my life slowly found balance again. I returned to work. I started running short distances despite doctors once doubting I would ever run comfortably again. I volunteered at the rehabilitation center where I had spent countless difficult mornings. Meeting people facing injuries even worse than mine changed my perspective forever. I realized survival wasn't the finish line. Learning how to live again was. One afternoon after volunteering, I found Emma waiting outside the center with 2 cups of coffee. She admitted she almost didn't come because she was afraid our friendship had become too important to risk changing. I understood exactly what she meant because I had been fighting the same feelings for months. Somewhere between hospital visits, therapy sessions, shared laughter, and quiet support, we had become each other's safest place. We didn't rush into anything. We gave ourselves time. We respected Olivia and everything the 3 of us had shared. Slowly, naturally, friendship grew into something deeper. There was no dramatic confession, no movie-style kiss in the rain. There was simply 2 people who had seen each other at their weakest choosing to walk toward the future together. Years later, when people asked how we met, we never started with romance. We started with kindness. We talked about hospital rooms, difficult recoveries, impossible days, and the simple decision to stay beside someone when leaving would have been easier. Looking back, I realized waking up in that hospital bed wasn't the worst day of my life. It was the beginning of discovering who truly remained when everything else disappeared. The scars on my body never completely faded, but I stopped wishing they would. Every scar reminded me that pain doesn't always end with loss. Sometimes it opens the door to people who quietly rebuild your life one small act of kindness at a time. I lost the future I thought I wanted, only to find a life filled with deeper love, stronger friendships, and gratitude I never knew existed. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Dad's Second Chance. Your support allows these emotional stories of hope, healing, and second chances to reach even more people who may need them today. Speech balloon special request: before this story ends, please leave a comment with the words, "Kindness changes everything," if you believe one caring person can completely transform someone's life. As I looked across our living room years later, watching Emma laugh while our little daughter took her first shaky steps toward me, I realized life doesn't always give us the ending we expect. Sometimes it gives us something even more meaningful. The worst day of my life became the first page of my greatest blessing. And every single morning since then, I wake up thankful that when I opened my eyes in that hospital room, the first smile I saw belonged to someone whose kindness would eventually teach me that love isn't measured by who promises to stay. It's measured by who actually does.